I'm Jessica Quinn. I'm 38, single, and according to my mother, I do something with office forms in the military. That's the version my family prefers to share. Safer, easier, less complicated. I've spent most of my adult life in uniform, but around them, it's like I'm wearing camouflage no one's supposed to notice. It was my niece's 6th birthday. Balloons, cupcakes, a rented magician with a receding hairline. I was there, smiling like an extra in someone else's celebration, trying not to stand too straight or speak too little. I wore the same plain beige cardigan I always bring to family events, the one that makes me blend in, like wallpaper. Mom likes me better that way. I sat in the back corner near the gift table, sipping warm punch and dodging small talk. The room smelled like frosting and too much perfume. My sister-in-law waved at me across the room, then quickly turned to chat with someone more important. A cousin I hadn't seen in years drifted by. "Wait, you're still doing that admin stuff, right? Filing papers for the Army?" I nodded. "Something like that. Let them think what they want." That day, my mother had pulled me aside early on just after I arrived. She adjusted my sleeve with that tight little smile of hers, the one that never reached her eyes. "Try not to correct anyone about your job today, honey," she whispered. "This is a happy occasion. Nobody wants to hear about boring government bureaucracy." Then she slipped away, proud of the control, as if managing me was part of the event decor. I wasn't even offended. I'd gotten used to being invisible unless they needed tech help or a designated driver. It was easier that way. No hard questions, no judgmental looks about why I didn't bring a date or why I missed Christmas last year. They always assumed I was working late or too obsessed with my files. They didn't know the work involved encrypted networks, satellite kill chains, and real-world consequences that kept them safe while they slept. I watched as everyone fussed over my younger brother and his wife. He's a dental hygienist. She sells skincare. My mom introduced them like celebrities. When she finally gestured toward me, it was with the same energy someone uses to explain a stain on a couch. "Jessica's still with the Marines," she said to a neighbor, waving a hand vaguely. "Doing paperwork or logistics. Bless her heart." They all nodded politely. Someone made a joke about filing cabinets, and laughter followed. I smiled like I always do. Practiced, neutral. The kind that says, "I'm used to this." And I was. For most of my life, I let them believe that I was just the lady in the back room pushing papers, organizing boxes, and checking calendars. That day, I planned to do what I always did: show up, smile, and leave quietly. But something shifted. It started small, and then it exploded. It didn't start as a lie, more like a shortcut. At first, saying I worked in military logistics was easier than explaining the specifics of my top secret SCI clearance level or the real reason I hadn't posted a birthday photo in 8 years. When someone hears you work in logistics, they picture warehouses or spreadsheets. That image sits well at dinner tables. My family liked that version: neat, safe, boring. I let them keep it because trying to correct them only led to confusion and, worse, discomfort. My mother especially hated anything that strayed from the path she had imagined for me. She thought the military was fine, as long as it was something you did before marriage, before kids, before real life began. She once told me, "You're never going to meet a husband if you're always off playing soldier." I remember I was 31 then, returning from a NATO coordination tour that had gone sideways in Poland. I had just finished giving operational briefings to generals twice my age, helping defuse a near crisis involving a rogue missile battery that no civilian press ever heard about. She said that sentence while handing me a cup of coffee, like it was a casual reminder of my biological clock. She never asked what I did overseas, never cared why I couldn't FaceTime or post online. She just wanted to know why I wasn't dating, why I didn't wear dresses more often, and why I didn't come home for Thanksgiving. If I tried to say, "Mom, I was flying to CENTCOM that week," she'd roll her eyes. "There's always some mission," she'd mutter, like it was an excuse I invented to avoid family meals. The truth is, I stopped explaining because no one listened. Or worse, they listened and made it about themselves. When I came home after my first classified assignment, leading a cyber defense team against a state-sponsored hack, my father looked up from his paper and said, "Still doing that computer stuff, huh? My printer is acting up. Can you fix it?" That was all. Not, "How was it?" or, "Are you okay?" Just another reminder that they had built a version of me they preferred, and I was supposed to stay in it. I've led strategic cyber ops from secure bunkers 60 feet underground. I've signed off on digital warfare tactics that could cripple a power grid in minutes. I've sat in front of world leaders and said things that reshaped timelines and diffused threats. But at family reunions, I became the cousin who's too into her job. Someone once told me I was intimidating because I didn't talk enough. I wanted to scream that silence is survival when your work involves national defense. There were moments I wanted to say it, to throw it on the table like a grenade and watch them scramble. Just once to see their faces when I said, "I outrank your husband, your boss, and half your Christmas card list." But I didn't. Because that's not why I serve. And because the cost of that truth was too high. Discretion is its own prison. You start by hiding details for safety, then hiding whole parts of yourself for convenience. Before long, you're a ghost at your own birthday. You sit at family tables hearing about real jobs while your mind drifts back to a surveillance feed from 6 time zones away. You nod along when your aunt says, "You should really settle down soon." Meanwhile, you're planning contingency extractions in case a consulate gets breached. They never understood that I didn't live in their world. I operated in shadows that they didn't even know existed. I spoke a language of protocols, satellite pings, and risk algorithms. In that world, every mistake costs more than feelings. It costs lives. But none of that fits on a Christmas card, so I just smiled and said, "Yeah, logistics." By the time I turned 35, I stopped correcting anyone. Let them think I was filing folders or ordering supplies. It made the holidays quieter. It made me invisible. And sometimes, invisible was safer. At least until one man stood up in a crowded room and reminded everyone, including me, who I really was. Michael Rowe. He was my cousin's new husband. I had only met him once before, briefly, at their wedding. I knew he was a former Army member, recently discharged. He was standing near the punch bowl, holding a beer, surrounded by my father and a few uncles. They were asking him about his service. Michael was animated, loud, and clearly enjoying the attention. "Yeah, it got pretty hairy over there," Michael said, gesturing with his bottle. "We were in the Korengal Valley. The Valley of Death, they call it. We got pinned down. Bad intel. Taking fire from 3 sides. My father nodded solemnly. "Sounds terrifying, son." "It was," Michael said. "We were cut off. Comms were spotty. We thought we were done for. I was writing a letter to my mom in my head." The group leaned in. "But then," Michael said, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper, "the radio crackled, and this voice came on. A woman's voice. But it wasn't like any dispatcher I'd ever heard. It was calm, like ice cold. I was standing 10 feet away, refilling my niece's juice cup. I froze. She didn't panic," Michael continued. "She knew exactly where the enemy was. She started calling out coordinates before we even saw them. Hostiles at 2 o'clock. Danger close. Shift fire. Michael shook his head, looking amazed. We called her Oracle, he said. Nobody knew her real name, but every guy on the ground knew the legend. If Oracle was on the net, you were going home. She was like God in a headset. My mother laughed from the nearby table. Well, that sounds like a movie. I bet she was some high-ranking general safe in a bunker. No, ma'am, Michael said seriously. She was Intel Command. The rumor was that she ran the entire sector. A ghost. I owe her my life. If I ever met her, I'd drop to my knees. My mother chuckled and patted Michael's arm. Well, you're safe now. And you have a real job, unlike poor Jessica here. She pointed at me. She's in the military too, Michael, but she just pushes papers, admin stuff. Right, Jessica. I looked up. I locked eyes with Michael. He smiled politely, dismissively. Admin is important too, Michael said, trying to be nice. Someone has to file the reports. I forced a smile. Someone has to. I turned away to walk toward the patio. I needed air. The irony was suffocating me. I didn't make it to the door. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A distinct, triple vibration pattern. My heart stopped. That wasn't a text. That wasn't a spam call. That was the red line. Priority 1. I pulled the phone out. The screen was black, with a single flashing red icon. I shouldn't answer it here. I should go outside. But the protocol for a red line is an immediate response. Seconds count. I stopped near the edge of the living room. The party chatter was loud, kids screaming, Michael finishing his story, my mom laughing. I pressed my thumb to the screen to unlock the biometric seal. I raised the phone to my ear. My posture changed. Instantly, the slump of the tired office worker vanished. My spine locked. My chin rose. My eyes went cold. This is Quinn, I said. My voice dropped an octave. It wasn't Jessica, the sister. It was Colonel Jessica Quinn. The voice on the other end was frantic. Colonel, we have a situation in Sector 4. The asset has been compromised. We need authorization for the kinetic strike. The window is closing. 3 minutes. I didn't hesitate. I didn't look around to see if anyone was watching. I entered the zone. Negative on kinetic strike, I said. My voice cut through the party noise like a razor blade. It was sharp, authoritative, and terrifyingly calm. You have civilians in the blast radius. Reroute the drone to Vector 7-9. Deploy the payload on the secondary target to create a diversion. Extract the asset via the South Ridge. The room went quiet. Not all at once, but in waves. People near me stopped talking. They heard the tone. They heard the command. Colonel, that's a high-risk maneuver, the voice in my ear argued. Do not argue with me, Major, I snapped. I am looking at the thermal feed. If you strike now, you kill 6 non-combatants. Shift the vector, now. That is a direct order. Copy, Colonel. Shifting vector, target acquired, asset secure. Good, I said. Oracle out. I hung up. I took a breath. I let my shoulders drop slightly. I turned around to find the door, and I saw him, Michael Rowe. He was standing 6 feet away. He had dropped his beer bottle. It lay on the carpet, foaming, but he didn't notice. His face was pale, ashen. His eyes were wide, staring at me with a mixture of horror and disbelief. He had heard the voice. He had heard the cadence, the calm, the authority. He had heard Oracle. The room was silent now. My mother looked confused. Jessica? Who were you talking to like that? You sounded so mean. Michael didn't look at her. He couldn't take his eyes off me. It's you, Michael whispered. His voice trembled. I looked at him. I put a finger to my lips. Sergeant. That was the trigger. Michael's body reacted before his brain did. He snapped his heels together. The sound was loud in the quiet room. He straightened his back so hard I thought it might snap. "Colonel on deck!" Michael screamed. It wasn't a shout, it was a roar, a warning, a declaration. The entire party jumped. My father spilled his coffee. My niece stopped crying. Michael raised his hand in a salute so sharp, so rigid, it vibrated with adrenaline. He stared straight ahead, locking eyes with me, terrified and awestruck. "Ma'am," Michael barked. I didn't know. My mother stepped forward, laughing nervously. "Michael, stop it. You're scaring the kids. It's just Jessica. She's a secretary." Michael turned his head slightly, his eyes blazing with anger. "Secretary?" Michael spat the word out. "Are you crazy?" He pointed at me with his non-saluting hand. "That is the Oracle. That is the commanding officer of Joint Cyber Command. She is a legend." My mother froze. "What?" "She saved my life," Michael said, his voice cracking. "She saved my entire platoon in the Korengal. I know that voice. I hear that voice in my sleep." He looked back at me, tears forming in his eyes. "I owe you everything, Colonel. Everything." He held the salute. He wouldn't drop it until I dismissed him. The room was dead silent. Everyone looked at me, the plain cardigan, the sensible shoes, and the face of a woman they had ignored for 20 years. But they didn't see Jessica the loser anymore. They saw what Michael saw. They saw the Colonel. I sighed. The cover was blown. I squared my shoulders. I looked at Michael. "As you were, Sergeant," I said softly. Michael dropped the salute, but he didn't relax. He looked like he wanted to hug me and run away at the same time. "Thank you, ma'am," he whispered. I looked around the room. My father was staring at me with his mouth open. My cousins looked terrified. And my mother. My mother looked like she was trying to solve a math problem in a language she didn't speak. She walked up to me. She looked at my face, searching for the daughter she bullied. "A colonel?" she asked. "You're a colonel?" "Yes, Mother," I said. But you said you did paperwork." "I do," I said. "I sign orders that save lives. That's paperwork." My mother blinked. Then the gears in her head started turning. I saw the shift. The shock faded, replaced by something else. Vanity. She smiled, a bright, fake, beaming smile. "Oh my God," she shrieked, turning to the crowd. "Did you hear that? My daughter is a colonel. She's a hero. She saved Michael." She reached out to hug me. "Why didn't you tell us?" she cried, playing the victim perfectly. "We could have had a party. We could have had a banner. I could have been so proud of you." I stepped back. I didn't let her touch me. The room went quiet again. "That's why I didn't tell you," I said. My voice was calm, but it was the voice of Oracle. My mother froze. "What?" "You don't want to be proud of me, Mom," I said. "You want to brag about me." The words hung in the air. "You want the banner. You want the applause. You want the credit for raising a hero," I continued. "But you didn't raise a hero. You raised a ghost. You ignored me for 20 years because my title wasn't shiny enough for your Facebook friends." My mother's face crumbled. "Jessica, that's not fair." "It is entirely fair," I said. "You mocked my service. You belittled my career. You told everyone I was a secretary because it was easier than admitting you didn't know who I was." I looked at my father. He looked down at his shoes. "I don't serve for your applause," I said to the room. "I serve for men like Michael. Men who actually know the cost." I turned to Michael. "Good to see you home safe, Sergeant," I said. "An honor, Colonel," he replied, standing tall. I picked up my purse. "I'm leaving now," I said. "Jessica, wait!" My mother pleaded. We can fix this. Stay for cake. I stopped at the door. I looked back at them. The balloons, the half-eaten cupcakes, the family that only loved the version of me that suited them. I have work to do, I said. I walked out the door. I didn't storm out. There was no scene, no slammed doors. I just left. I got into my car. I sat there for a moment in the silence. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. You are being so dramatic. We are your family. Come back inside and let's take a picture with Michael. People are asking questions. She still didn't get it. She wanted the photo op. She wanted the prop. I didn't reply. I started the car. I drove away from the suburbs, back toward the city, back toward the base. A month later, I got the next birthday invitation. Same handwriting, same glitter envelope. I wrote back a note. Just one line. Sending love. Won't be attending. No excuses. No details. I didn't need them. I sealed the card, mailed it, and let the rest go. Some people say cutting off family is dramatic. That blood should always come first. But love without respect is just control dressed in sentiment. And I had worn that weight long enough. I didn't cut them off. They cut me out the moment they decided who I was without asking. The moment they chose the version of me that made them comfortable, even if it wasn't real. So I let them keep that version. And I moved on. My world looks different now. Not louder, just clearer. At work, no one cares who my family is or whether I showed up to a party last weekend. They care about the briefing I deliver at 600, the mission plan I signed off on, and the team I kept safe. My name carries weight, but not because of gossip or titles whispered over cake. It carries weight because I earned it. My team sees me for who I am. They stand when I enter a room, not out of fear, but respect. They trust me with their lives, not because I demand it, but because I've shown them I deserve it. I still get letters from home sometimes. Updates about birthdays, weddings, and small talk wrapped in obligation. I read them, then file them away. I don't hate anyone. I just stopped waiting for something that was never mine to begin with. Validation isn't what I serve for. It's not why I stayed up planning rescue operations at 2 a.m., or why I carried the weight of decisions that don't leave when the mission ends. My legacy won't be a story told at family barbecues. And that's okay, because I've learned something. Some heroes get speeches. They get banners and medals and applause, and some don't. Some just get a salute. A single moment of quiet recognition from someone who truly understands what it took. That's enough. For me, it was never about being seen by everyone, just being seen by the right ones. And when Michael stood up and saluted me in that living room, it wasn't just about rank. It was about finally being seen, fully, without filter or assumption. I don't need applause. I never did. I have the mission. I have the respect of the people who matter, and for the voice of Oracle. That is more than enough.